Hello, All-Star Sports Show. Merrick DeCash.
And Ethan Smythe.
Back here. First All-Star Sports Show in a few weeks. We're going to be working double time to make up for the All-Star Sports Show we missed last week, and we'll be coming at you with an All-Star Sports Show next week as well. We're going to kick the show right off with the CFL recap. Week 4 recap. We got the Alouettes and the Calgary Stampeders. This game was absolutely crazy because the Montreal Alouettes had a 24-0 lead after the first quarter. Explain to me how the train came off the rails.
Well, it all started in the second quarter. Calgary started to build up a bit of momentum. It looked like the game was basically over, but you know what they say, right? It isn't over till it's over. Kevin Glenn going out with an injury and Levi Mitchell doing a surprisingly good job replacing him. They had a great second half and won the game quite handily.
And that is right. The Montreal Alouettes also beating the Edmonton Eskimos last night. We'll get to that later in the show. But the Toronto Argonauts and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Toronto defeating Winnipeg 35-19. Ricky Ray with an impressive comeback game after his crap show 2 weeks ago in BC. Explain to me how the Argos won this game.
Well, the Argos won this game. They stopped the Blue Bombers on the Blue Bombers offense. Not really a big surprise here, but the biggest issue, it might have been a big win for the Argonauts, but it was probably a bigger loss in the long run as they lost Ricky Ray and Chad Cackert to injury.
And that is right. Edmonton Eskimos and BC Lions. This was a heartbreaker for Edmonton. Again, the penalties biting them in the butt as they lose 31-21 to the BC Lions at BC Place. Explain to me what the Eskimos need to do to get the win.
Well, they have to play more disciplined football, and they have to quit turning over the football. This was a tie game at the end of the first half, and then BC just came on storming. They got a touchdown, then they got a touchdown off an interception, and you can't keep doing that to win games.
And what's really impressed me about those Eskimos lately is Nathan Kuhorn. He's really stepping up in Fred Stamps' injury. He was injured last week. He will be back soon, as the Edmonton Eskimos are. We will talk about his return coming up later on the All-Star Sports Show. Saskatchewan absolutely killing the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Is this a surprise?
Not at all. The Rough Riders have been the best team in the CFL so far this year. They've really impressed me. And, getting Geroy Simon back is obviously a big boost for him. And you can't argue that Corey Sheets has probably been the best player in the CFL this year so far.
And that is right. We're just going to take you to yesterday's game. The Edmonton Eskimos and the Montreal Alouettes. What a mess for the Eskimos. They had this game in their clutches. Montreal leading 20-6 at halftime, pardon me. Edmonton coming back and taking a 1-point lead in the fourth, but they lost it with 7 seconds left. A bunch of controversy in this game. Undisciplined football, as Mr. Smythe mentioned earlier in the show. Is it time to load ship for next season already? Should you give up after losing 3 straight?
Well, Ed Hervey did mention earlier this year was probably going to be a rebuilding year, which in Edmonton we know all too well with the Oilers. So, yeah, I don't say quit because it's an 8-team league. You can have a bad season and still make the playoffs, but it's not looking that good right now.
And I just want to point out, 2 years ago, when the Grey Cup was in BC, they started out 1-5 and they won the Grey Cup, and the Eskimos started out 5-0 that year, and they ended up crossing over. Now on to the All-Star of the Week. I'm going to go with a record first here on the All-Star Sports Show.
Okay.
And I'm going to pick a coach for the All-Star of the Week, and I'm going to go with Don Mattingly of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the way these guys have turned their season around is, to my surprise, they really swapped positions with the San Francisco Giants and Bruce Bochy as they have been sliding down. Mattingly over his impressive sweep over the Toronto Blue Jays, which we'll get to later in the show. They won the series against the Nationals. They've just been surging, and Don Mattingly is an amazing manager in my mind, and he should keep up his success with the Los Angeles Dodgers, as I think they will win that NL West division. Ethan, your All-Star of the Week.
Well, and you mentioned Don Mattingly, a longtime New York Yankee, and it kind of fits as a nice segue because I'm going to go to the greatest closer in baseball history, a guy who won the All-Star Game MVP, Mariano Rivera, not necessarily because of what he's done this week, although he has only allowed 2 earned runs in the past week, But let's face it, this is one of the greatest players in MLB history, the best pitcher for sure, closing at least, and you got to figure that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Mind you, he was the MVP of the All-Star game. I was quite surprised by that. But that's it for All-Star of the Week. We'll be right back here on the All-Star Sports Show. Merrick DeCash.
Ethan Smythe.
With question time. Merrick DeCash.
And Ethan Smythe.
Back here on the All-Star Sports Show. It's time for our favorite segment, Question Time. And this first one comes in from John G. in Toronto, Ontario. And he asks, do you think the Blue Jays have a better or worse second half, and why? Let's first explain to you. I'll let Mr. Smythe answer that in a minute. But I'm first going to explain to you the Blue Jays were last heading into the All-Star break. 7-game losing streak was snapped yesterday against the worst team in the MLB.
It doesn't really matter.
Houston Astros. Ethan, do they have a better or worse second half, and why?
Well, I remember the first half, one of the big reasons they had a big 12-game winning streak that got them kind of back in the race was their bullpen. Well, their ERA is close to 9 now since the All-Star break. I mean, it's gotten so bad that they could be up 12-0, and I'd expect them to lose 13-12. You know what I mean? It's just
They
ridiculous.
lost an 8-2 lead against the Los Angeles Dodgers. That whole Los Angeles Dodgers series was an absolute joke.
That was an atrocity because the bullpen can do it. Yeah, okay, they beat the Astros. Well, anybody can beat them, so that really doesn't count.
And the two pitchers that gave up the most runs combined in the Dodgers series was the two All-Stars, Lower the Bar and Brett Cecil. Now it's time for Edmonton Eskimos talk. Now that the Eskimos are 4-1, is it time to shuffle the deck?
Ed Hervey, as much as I'd like to think he would do it, he just got Kivas Reed a 2-year extension. It seems like he knows what he wants to do here, but yeah, I mean, being 1-4 and in last place just sucks.
I'm just going to shoot you with a question here. If they miss the playoffs with a losing record, is Kivas gone?
I would like to think he is, but I think the way Ed Hervey's thinking, he's going to keep him in for another year.
And personally, I think they should fire Kivas Reed. And the stupid thing, their offensive coordinator is George Cortez. He is, isn't it? Greg Marshall is their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
The defensive coordinator helping out is George Cortez, who was fired 3 games into the season with the Hamilton Tiger Cats last year. Greg Marshall fired after an 0-4 start 3 years ago in Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
They're just picking up the scraps. You need to go find former NFL coordinators, maybe NCAA coaches, like the
Dan
Montreal
Hawkins in
Alouettes
Montreal.
did.
There you go.
And Dan Hawkins not very successful in the NCAA with the Colorado Buffaloes, but look at him now in Montreal. It looks like he's going to be turning his season around. And I just want to kind of talk about the Montreal Alouettes just a little bit. They're having trouble adapting to the new system without Mark Trestman. Do you think they'll get this figured out?
Well, you do have the best quarterback in CFL history on your side, and you have good receivers like S.J. Green to help you out, so I don't see how they can't.
Also, Jamal Richardson in the mix.
Richardson.
We just have to let you know a few transactions in the Canadian Football League. The Hamilton Tiger Cats releasing former CFL Defensive Player of the Year Markeith Knowlton on Wednesday, and releasing interceptions leader with the Riders 2 years ago, James Patrick. Also, the Toronto Argonauts made a few moves. They released Brandon Isaac, and they picked up Markeith Knowlton, if I'm right. But do you think Markeith Knowlton or Brandon Isaac, which surprises you more that got released?
Well, I think Markeith Knowlton, as you mentioned, a top defensive player from a few years ago. I guess he must have fallen off his game a bit because he should still be where he was, but now Toronto, you found a great player.
And that's it for the CFL recap. We're just going to quickly run through NHL schedule released last week. Oilers open up against the Jets. Do you like the Oilers' chances this year, just looking at a clear overall view from July?
Well, to me, they're clearly a better team than what they have been the past few years. I think they'll be in the mix. Maybe if they make the playoffs, they'll probably finish 8th or 7th. It won't be like they'll take over the league right away, but they did make a couple moves I like, Andrew Ferentz, David Perron, etc., so they'll be better.
Who finishes with a better record? The Edmonton Oilers or the Columbus Blue Jackets?
Interesting. I'm actually going to go with the Oilers here, and it's mainly because if you look at the Blue Jackets division, I mean, you got Pittsburgh, Philly, Rangers, Islanders. it's going to be hard to adapt to the Eastern Conference style of hockey, but what is going to be fun is seeing Bobrovsky play the Flyers, 3 times a year, 4 times a year?
And that's going to be right. And we will be tuning in Jay Onrait as he starts in 2 weeks with Fox Sports. We wish Jay and Dan good luck there. And we are signing off. Merrick DeCash.
Ethan Smythe.
You can check us out on Twitter at
All-Star Sports 88
or allstarsportshow@gmail.com. But for now, thank you.